So there is a curse. That's very interesting.
Hello there and welcome wherever you may be. And I hope the light will be with you today. And other such sentiments, because I see that unless we reach up for something higher than ourselves, this world descends into a mortal chaos. And there are no solutions for a mortal chaos unless you reach once again to the heavens and once again to the earth and make things happen. I'll read out a little bit from a book I've just got, Life Among the English by Rose Macaulay, from 1942, when the country wasn't quite as big a mess as it is today, and from which the picture of Beelzebub that I used last week comes from, in fact, and a few other things. So this is a painting of the Great Exhibition of Queen Victoria, May the 1st, 1851. I used to love scenes like this when all the elements of the British Empire were brought together in a festival, but I see now that actually it represents a kind of slowing down of society, when large gangs of people were gathered together. And the light is outside. These people no longer really have the sense of what they are to do, and they start to celebrate and drink in coffee shops and so on. Already the West is slowing down. Or as Gurdjieff would have said, they have lost the taste of work and of struggle. And very importantly, and in a concealed way, these people are losing sensitivity. As the sugariness of the celebratory consumer society began, even back then in 1850, the champagne and the cakes and the coffees and the smoking and the talking, the result of it is, from Gurdjieff's point of view, the opening of the wrong work of the emotional and sexual center. This starts to flow in society. If society is a being in itself, the fact that these veins have been opened and there is this leaking of the reconciling center of the middle story and the lower story, the emotional and the sexual centers, it encourages everybody to leak just like them. And they lose sensitivity, they lose the quality of vibrations, which is what sensitivity is. Because they vibrate powerfully and frequently, they can detect minute variations. That is sensitivity. But once the reconciling centers are opened, what Gurdjieff calls wrong work, then everything is dying, everything is leaking. And human beings on this planet are very prone to this kind of breaking down of society, of a loss of momentum. Why? Well, Gurdjieff describes because the planet itself is having a lot of trouble. The planet itself apparently was hit by a comet because of some terrible miscalculation by a lofty creature, and after that happened, fragments of the Earth exploded into space, and one became the moon, so the story goes, and the Earth became like a single mother who had not prepared for pregnancy and had to deal with this child, the moon, and she did so by bringing forth the organic life on the planet, the vegetation and the animals and the human beings, who produce a certain kind of energy. And although this is completely unknown, of course, to humanity, who doesn't know much apart from that bananas are high in potassium, science says so, the nature of human life is that a certain kind of energy is produced. What happens to that energy on the death of the human body? Well, that energy goes somewhere, and it goes to the moon, apparently. And on a dark autumn evening, when a faint veil shows across the face of the moon so that gentle tints of the rainbow are visible as a silhouette, you can feel something coming from the moon, at least if a little bit of the old world is still alive inside of you. So I'll read a little random passage for you. At court, things are in a very ill condition, and the vices of drinking, swearing, and loose amours, that I know not want, will be the end of it, and the clergy so high that all people that I meet with do protest against their practice. In short, I see no content or satisfaction anywhere. All the same, a number of persons had a very merry dancing, drinking, laughing, quaffing, and unthinking time, and probably in height of the clergy left them unperturbed. Pepys liked the village church, where when we entered it with his lust, at our coming in the country people all rose with so much reverence. And the parson began the exhortation, right worshipful and dearly beloved. But all the church going was a function of social life. One met neighbours there, ogled beauty, and observed clothes, besides criticising the sermons. Patriots complained that people ran after French fashions. The man of the mode, like Sir Fopping Flutter, had French tailors, glovers, wig makers, scents and phrases. What patriots had always called French vices were openly the fashion. Cuckoldry always a tedious theme, but fair to observe the stage. But in the deep, dirty country people went on much the same. They saw nothing there of that thin sort of animal that flutters from tavern to playhouse and back again, all his life made of wig and cravat, nor of that more intelligent town animal who was entranced by the experiments of the Royal Society, science. The normal country squire would have been disgusted by one and bored by the other. As to his lady, he might sometimes pine for a little gay life, but disapproved tartly of the outrageous young sparks of both sexes, who she understood flaunted their ill manners in public places, jested at chastity, and jeered at piety. It was not virtue's hour, nor the hour for dignified young women. I find our sex is not much valued in our age, said a lady in 1685, deploring the sex of an infant great-niece. Valued they were, but seldom for reasons which would have pleased Catherine Phillips, Lucy Hutchinson, or Mary Aspel. Well, that's good fun, isn't it? And we live in completely analogous times. However, we are in truth a couple of notches down the river, where the native population is being slowly replaced by the left wing, and so the doom of England is not far away. In truth, I love all these people and all their manners and all their reasons, and I could find something to say with all of them, I suppose. At the bottom of all people is a soul, and if not a soul, then the hope of a soul, and if not the hope of a soul, then the spirit of life itself is in them. And I love them for that. But what can we do about this world except try to remember and bring as much light as possible into it? Light, as Gurdjieff would correct us, being not really light, but a fusion of light and darkness, of work, of momentum, of always continuing and being wary of the leaking of the reconciling centres that he calls the wrong work. And the wrong work does paint up a city, does paint up an era like those eras and the era that we currently experience. And mankind is clearly blind to all of these things. As I was washing the dishes, as I normally do after breakfast this morning, I did in fact do the separation exercises, and I could feel very clearly that the moving centre is in fact completely separate from the will of my mind, and that the spirit that comes from the emotional centre is once again a third party to the whole proceedings, and if I had not performed Gurdjieff's exercises, they would not have performed themselves. One thing particularly struck me this week is that our emotions are barely used, and in the past the way to stimulate them was of course to pray to the Divine Lord Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary with all our passion and our truth and our sincerity until the tears ran down our cheeks. Personally, I don't find such things so difficult even today, or any spiritual practice from wherever it comes. It seems I fell into the vat, or was born in the vat, or I'm simply born on the wrong planet. But I know for most people it's a little difficult to get the hang of, to say the least. But I find culture, art and myth to be particularly valuable because they communicate where words do not. And talking about lofty things like Gurdjieff's sciences from a higher world, or alternatively the complete nonsense that comes out of the media today. But seeing the Lady of Shalott and this great beauty, the love of the earth, the love of all things, the feelings that flow from our heart, as if a light has flown down into us and made one circle around our heart and then flowed straight through us into the earth. How beautiful is that? The Americans, though, don't seem to understand these things, and they've opened so many veins in Western society, from the adulteration of the money, the billionairing, and of course the social media that makes everybody leak whether they like it or not. At least the coffee is good, the music sometimes is, and there are a few jokes here and there. Here in England, the Archbishop has left his position, and we are expecting incoming the first woman head of the religion of England, the first female Archbishopess. Have the champagne on the rocks, as they say. Strictly speaking, it's somewhat of a disaster, and once the English religion is destroyed, everybody will be destroyed with it, because it's obvious for me that the Muslims, for instance, although their religion is quite small compared to Christianity, it protects them. And without that shield, you have no barrier to the forces of entropy. And just like the autumn leaves that fall to the ground and then crumble into dust before being blown away into nothingness, we can expect the same. But I do often think about the possibilities of higher women, and aside from the Lady of Shalott, there are of course the many noble ladies and saints from Catholicism, and some unusual women that hung around with Crowley, for instance. Gurdjieff mentions one as well, I think, in his book of remarkable personages. Unfortunately, none of these higher beings will actually be installed in Canterbury, and we'll just get a shrieking liberal who grew up either as a boomer or as a direct descendant of one of those hippies from the swinging 60s parties. From Gurdjieff. Then the Haji sat down beside us again and said, "As my long years of investigation have convinced me, and as the science of Shat-Chai-Men states, there do indeed exist in the world two kinds of vibrations, namely creative vibrations and momentum vibrations. I have made clear by experiment that the best strings for producing creative vibrations are those made of a certain metal or of goat gut. Strings made of other materials do not have this property, and the vibrations issuing from them, like those obtained from the flow of air, are purely momentum vibrations. In such a case, the sounds are produced by vibrations arising from the mechanical action of momentum and from the friction of the resulting flow of air." The images I have regarding the difference is that momentum means that something is carried from the past. Something from the past was created, and by momentum it is still percolating through the system, and that includes through the subjective activity of a person who is not invoking the creation of his soul. The creative power of his soul, meaning the forces that are produced within him when he works with his own individual aim and for his own reasons. On this planet, the truth is often running underground because the planet is too low for the truth to be manifested at all times. Well, it's a bit short, but I think that's all I have for this week. I wish you well. Please take care.
Can't you see? You're living out the exact same pattern your mother lived out with your father.
I am? Pray tell.
In some way, you're trying to relive it, and in the process of reliving it, correct it. As if that were possible. Ha!
It don't say ha.
Don't say hi. I added that.
What do you mean you added that?
I
Are you allowed to do
I added
that?
it. We're allowed to add things.
How could you just add something?
You're
You
allowed
can't
to
do
add
that.
things. It's called ad-libbing.
You can't do that.
I can do that. What do you know? You don't know nothing. Shut up and read.
I think the whole thing stinks,
I think
all right?
you're a degenerate zombie. Shut up
You
and
better
read.
shut up.
You
More
shut
than
up
you.
and read.
Just shut up.
You shut up.
You're lucky you're Nick's girl.
You're lucky you're an idiot.
What endeavors you to concoct a theory so tenuous?
That sure pities the poor folks who gonna have to pay to see this play.